Hello and welcome to the Next 100 Days podcast. My name is Graham Arrowsmith.
And my name's Kevin Appleby. So I thought, Graham, I'd bore you with another finance discussion today, because I know you love the subject so much. But we've got a seasoned fractional CFO with us, and I think he's got some very interesting things to tell business founders.
I just don't know where you get that from, Kevin. I think you're just making it up about me. But I love finance people. And in particular, those people who do it sort of part-time, because they realise they don't want to impress themselves all the time in finance. So they want a bit of time to do other things like, making money and things like that. But today we've got Andy Cristin, and he has a website called Pareto FD. We'll get into that in a minute. But Andy, welcome to the Next 100 Days podcast.
Thank you, Graham. Good morning, Kevin. Thanks for inviting me on.
Well, Andy, you are a virtual finance director, but there's so much more to you, isn't there? I mean, you're a sort of a award-winning book. You've got an award-winning book. Tell us more about that in a minute. But basically, you've got lots of you've been involved in lots of new start businesses and so forth. Give us an idea of who Andy Cristin is.
Yeah, so I'm a qualified accountant, but unusually, perhaps I've never worked in practice. I've always worked in industry. I started off working for a company called Booker that you're probably aware of through Cash and Carry and the Booker Prize. Yeah. Met my wife there, actually. She worked literally on the Booker Prize. She arranged or helped arrange it for a couple of years. And I went through sort of a graduate program there. Ended up in a very big startup. We had a tender for some MOD business, and we won that, set up a new division. And that sort of set me off on a number of startups. But every time I moved job, I always seemed to sort of move to a smaller company. So I sort of went from a fully listed company to an AIM-listed company, to some big owner-managed businesses. And now work mainly for smaller owner-managed businesses, 1 to 10 million turnover. And that's what I like. I like working with people who have set something up. Probably they're really good at the technical side of their business. They're average at the sales and they're rubbish at finance. Yeah. So it's an opportunity for me to help.
So you help on both sort of the business development side of it, not as an auxiliary salesperson, but basically you can spot things that they're not maybe doing as well as they could be doing, but you do that through the sort of lens of a finance guy.
Yeah, I mean, I think most finance directors in any type of business, you've got to look over the whole business, haven't you? You've got to understand everything. So in some of the businesses I've worked in, sales has been brilliant and it's worked very well. Yeah. In some of them, the owner is actually pretty good at the finance side of it. They just probably shouldn't waste their time on it because there's someone else that can do it and they can get on with doing something that's more profitable.
Well, Kevin's good at marketing, good at finance, so he's very much in that camp as well. I mean, you've sort of shared a similar path, as have I, as it happens, big company and sort of gradually finding yourself working with smaller and smaller companies. So I do recognise that path, and so I guess in a way, Kevin, it's another corporate escape story.
It is, yeah, because Andy has done what a lot of CFOs do, and ended up setting up his own business away from full-time employment that deals with multiple companies at once, and parallels, I think, to the podcast we recorded with Kevin Hall, where we were talking about a portfolio life, and that it's very common these days for a company to want a finance person, can't afford to employ one full time, so the fractional CFO has been born, and we're seeing more and more of them joining Grow CFO as members. So yeah, it's definitely corporate escape. It allows you to work as little or as long as you want, and I think the impressive thing is Andy has used it as well to write a book.
Now, Andy, you mentioned, I mean, we'll come to the book in a minute, but I'm just thinking about your target market in terms of the size of the market. You talked about 1 million to 10 million or so. So they've kind of got going, bit too busy, or possibly they don't have the skills in the finance area. They might have Mavis who's looking after the books, but they don't have a finance director. Do you find that when you go in, once you've done your bit, they end up appointing a full-time, or do they basically, is your job almost to keep them on the hook for many years?
Yeah, I mean, there've been a couple of roles where I've gone in and eventually we've found someone full-time for the role because the business has grown too big.
Yeah.
I mean, the idea of a portfolio is that if you've got a number of different businesses, isn't it, and none of them are too big. So I had one last year that was just getting too much. It was too many days per month. So we had a chat and sort of I agreed an exit over a period, and we found someone to take over as finance director, and I trained him up and then left. So, and I've done that a couple of times. I mean, that's success, isn't it? That's a sign of success. You've helped grow the business to a point where they do need somebody full time.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed that. Yeah.
It must be okay. So the finance director, the managing director of the company probably knows enough about finance and has got a little bit of support to cover that person in that area. But somewhere along the line, they realize that, hold on a minute, I need a bit of help. So it's not you chasing them. They'll come and chase you, won't they?
Yeah, I mean, most of the work I've had is some sort of referral, a few from banks, a few from firms of accountants,
Right.
and or somebody, a friend or a business colleague.
Right. So what you're saying to that network is to say, well, look out those sort of people who might be not struggling so much, but might require the sort of skills of this type of finance director, and then refer them. So that's basically where your business is coming from.
Yeah, I mean, the businesses will often sort of plateau. They start. I mean, some of the ones I'm involved in have started from literally nothing. One person in a back bedroom. And got to a significant business, 10, 20 in the team. And like you say, it is sort of Mavis doing the books. But what they tend to do is they keep score. They do all the invoicing, sort out the VAT and all the historic stuff. Yeah. But there's nobody looking forward. There's nobody trying to analyze gross profit to say, product number one is fantastic, but it's just subsidizing product number two, which is rubbish. You shouldn't be doing it. Yeah. No one's getting down to that level because the data isn't good enough.
I bet you love doing that. I mean, I just know that Kevin does. He just loves the idea of pointing out the bleeding obvious to him, but to everybody else, it's just. But don't you love that moment when you're saying product number two, ditch it? Isn't that real power?
Yeah, it is good. I think sometimes it doesn't go down too well because obviously they might spend a lot of time and effort on it. Maybe it can be recovered, but it's awareness, isn't it? All we're trying to do is we're trying to say, look, on a spreadsheet, obviously, here's your business broken down a bit. You need to make some decisions based on this because at the moment you can't see it, so you're not doing anything. You're ploughing ahead, and you're making a gross profit of 15%. Well, fantastic, but you could actually probably condense your business a bit and make more money and have an easier life. Yeah, that's often the case when they've got to the plateau.
I think that's a good point. I mean, if that's because Kevin, sorry, I talked to you a little bit earlier, Kevin, and forgive me for that. But your book's called The Profit, or one of your books is called The Profit Mindset. That was Amazon. It was an Amazon bestseller, and it was shortlisted. I was going to say for the Booker Prize, but that would have been nepotism, wouldn't it? It
would have been something, wouldn't it?
It would have been something, but it was shortlisted for the Business Book Awards 2020.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and in the short book category, because it's deliberately quite short. You can read it in one sitting.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, it's just 4 steps, 4 things for people to look at, and if it's focused on profit, because I think a lot of people, when I start talking to them, they're focused on revenue.
Yeah,
revenue and cash, sort of the two ends of the scale. Yes, you need to look at cash if you haven't got enough. Revenue, it's a number you need to track, but it's not the be all and end all. Profit's a bit difficult because you could have 3 accountants in a room and they'll tell you there's 4 different levels of profit. It's not a real thing, is it? Profit. It's something that you got to make assumptions for, and it's just a bit more difficult.
Is it something that's really important now? Because I can imagine. I know I recognise that in my own business. And you know what turnover is. You know what your costs are, and every single day I live that. But I'm not sure if I'm giving enough mental attention to profit first, almost. And does it take a certain type of individual to say, actually, that's what I should be focusing on? Is there something in the book that might give some sort of stewardship to that?
Yeah, I mean, it is saying it's probably your most important number in the long run.
Yeah.
As I said a minute ago, if you haven't got enough cash, you've got to focus on that. But a lot of businesses get to the point where they have got enough cash. And if you get the profit right, in the long term, you don't have to worry about the cash because, the one follows the other. It's a timing difference.
Yeah.
And the other thing, of course, is that you need to understand the profit because it's going to be probably a large element of deciding what you get for the business when you exit if you're one of the lucky ones to sell.
Did you self-publish the Profit Mindset, or is it published by a publishing group?
Yeah, no, it's published by Rethink Press.
Okay.
Yeah.
And was that difficult working with them with this? How did you sort of take the idea to them, and how did it work?
It's what's called a hybrid publisher. So it's you do a lot yourself, but I mean, I did have proper editing. They did all the typesetting and all the front cover and gave me advice on lots of things.
Yeah.
And books, I think it's quite.
How many pages if you said one sitting to Kevin, he'd sit down and read, the telephone directory in about 3 hours. But I mean, for me, I'd be probably reading that in 3 weeks. Because I'd ponder over every sort of nuance that you're saying. So I think we are different readers. But how many pages?
Nuances in the telephone directory, Graham. I'm impressed.
Well, you probably see something in it for you, Kevin, I'm sure. But or if it was a tome about railways or model railways, and I was really
interesting reading, Graham.
Well, no, I was going through
interesting finance books.
I was going through a town quite close to where my son lives, who was just had his second little girl, and I was saying to my wife that, wow, that's a place that Kevin would love, and it was selling model railways. So it was. But you see, I think you could sit there all night reading that, Kevin, wouldn't you? A book about model railways.
Frequently do, Graham.
So when it comes to this, how long is a sitting then? Because how many pages are we talking?
Yeah, I think it's 130 pages.
Oh, all right.
My cousin looked at it because he reads books for a living. He's an actor, and he does these what do you call it? Like the audible books. He does the reading part.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And he said he did it in about an hour and 20 minutes. So he's probably quite a fast reader. But yeah.
So did you get him to do the audible version? Because that would.
I haven't done it yet. No, we did have a chat about it, but I haven't done that yet. I probably will. Yeah.
I think it's one of those things that people consume books in different ways, but we obviously are producing a podcast, and many people listen to podcasts, but when it comes to books also, it's one of those things of consuming books in a slightly different way, and really interesting listening to people.
Yeah, I rarely read books these days. I've got the Audible app, and anything I want to get, most of them are on there now, aren't they? You can find a copy.
Well, oddly enough, I haven't. I do tend to sort of on my morning walk, I tend to have the ears in there, the earphones in there. I'm just listening to my iPhone. I'll just set something going and off it goes. But but often it's a video, and so I'm constantly getting it out and having that's interesting, and putting it away again.
Yeah.
To avoid falling into the Leeds-Liverpool canal. But beyond that, the Profit Mindset's obviously a book that can attract people to your business. Is your business called Pareto FD?
That's right, yeah. Pareto Financial Direction is what I called it, which, thinking about it now, is probably too long a name, and no one can spell Pareto, so it wasn't a great idea. Potato is the best one I've had, but
but you're talking to somebody who's got a company called Finely Fettled, and honestly, I get all kinds of variants of that.
Yeah.
But, Kevin, you've got an easier company name, haven't you?
I just went for Appleby Management Services.
Yes, you have to saying.
But then again, that's only because I couldn't get Appleby Consulting Limited. Somebody already had it. So it's Appleby Consulting Trading. So Appleby Management Services Trading is Appleby Consulting.
Is it? Didn't we do a Google search on your name at one stage, Kevin? And it was like there was somebody who's getting a lot more hits than you. It was some father or something. It was some.
Oh yeah, and that's always going to be a problem. That Kevin Appleby in the United States is an archbishop in the Catholic Church, and he's one of the major spokespersons on immigration. So
oh wow,
loads and loads of hits on him. And that I then thought about using first initial as well, and I could go as J. Kevin Appleby. Guess what? He's J. Kevin Appleby as well.
You just can't win sometimes, Kevin. But having said that, I mean, when it comes to yourself, I mean, we know what Pareto means. We've talked about it, and I've got a marketing degree or two. But basically, so I kind of get that whole idea. And is that the idea that you're almost? It's like these little hinges that can swing big doors. Like you go in and you can actually make a big movement within a company.
Yeah, I mean, initially the thought was, I started doing this. I think I set the business up in 2008. So this sort of fractional CFO, part-time FD role wasn't so common. So yeah, I just thought it was an intro for people to understand that 80-20. So you're going to get 80% of the benefit of having a finance director, but only 20% of the cost and 20% of the time. And I think that's very achievable. Even when I worked for the biggest privately owned company I worked for was probably 20 million turnover. I was posting journals occasionally and checking the payroll and doing stuff that an FD shouldn't be doing. But you're in a business, no one else can do it. Someone's got to do it who understands what they're doing. So you end up doing it. But if you just go to a business, if you're really focused on just looking at things like, what are you trying to do for the next 3 years? Where's your gross profit coming from? And just being a sounding board. A lot of the guys that I work with, they just love being able to talk to someone who's been a business owner, because I've done that as well, and I've been through to an exit, and has worked, in lots of other enterprises, because they've only worked in their one. And sometimes they haven't even really got to a very high position in a corporate before. Yeah. A couple of guys jumped quite early and set their own business up in their 20s. So they only know what they do,
So is it almost a case that I've got a financial director or a finance director, I'm going to get rid of him or her and bring in you? Has that ever happened?
No, I don't think that's ever happened.
No, I just wonder whether or not they see it as an opportunity because they recognize the Pareto nature of what they do. They actually end up going down the road for whatever reason, but basically in their stead comes along you. So there's a gap.
Oh, actually, no, it did happen once. Sorry, it did happen once. So the last role I had as a full-time finance director, I did go to the owner and say, look, I'm spending a lot of time doing stuff you get someone else to do. Yeah. Why don't we do it part-time? He said, no, I don't want to do it. I need only full-time FD. So he got somebody else, but they didn't work out. So then I did go back afterwards and I did that one as a part-time. It was a bit different because obviously I knew the business inside out from being there many years before. But
it's an interesting one
to look for, really.
It's not. I mean, I'm not suggesting for a minute that it's about almost like manufacturing a situation. I'm just saying that the actual nature of what you're doing is that you get right to the heart of it, don't you? You go. You're not incentivized to do other things and outside the remit of what you believe should be being done, and in particular this idea of going in with a profit mindset, and then they're getting the pure beef out. There's no fat there.
Yeah, and you can be quite blunt. If you're a finance director, and you, as I was when I was early 40s, I was in a job, had a mortgage. There's only so blunt you can be about a problem.
Are you sure you're not from Yorkshire? Because if you're that blunt, you should really be from the. But you're not, are you? You're from. No. Is it Chelmsford? You're from?
That's right. Yeah, I'm from Essex, born and bred. Yeah.
Yeah, blimey. Well, you don't really sound it. So you must have been working away from home.
I've worked around a bit. My mum's Welsh and my dad's from Jersey, so yeah, I'm not. When I say born and bred, I was born there, but
It's like a triangle, that, isn't it? I
it
mean,
is,
I suppose.
yeah.
Have you ever worked out what the angles are?
It must be about a triangle. Yeah, you're right. Yeah,
Yeah, got to be. Yeah, but no, honestly, I don't know what kind of triangle. But Kevin would know, of course. He's probably worked out the angles already. But we are different people.
Yeah, that Graham, it was going through my mind. I was trying to visualize the map and see where it went.
Well, it occurred to me, but yeah, I have to say it's fascinating for me that you can go into a business of $1 million plus, and we talked not long ago about the sort of difficulty it is to get into sort of 2 million plus, getting your business into that sort of 2 million plus business, the thing is, your job is almost to make that business work better, produce more profits. It's not necessarily to get it to have more turnover. It's what you're going to deliver is more profit. Is that summarizing what you're doing?
yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah. However, the best way to get that profit is. I mean, at some point you're going to have to grow the top line, but it's probably one of the first things I do when I go in is to try and do some sort of gross profit analysis and figure out where is it coming from, which bits work well and which bits don't. And sometimes there's nothing to change, but often there are elements that don't work, and you've either got to put the prices up or you've got to find a different way of delivering the service, or you do stop it. But then that you're more focused, then people have got a better idea what they're doing. They're not running around doing all sorts of different things. They're more focused. You can put in better systems. You can market to a narrower niche, and if you're making more profit, having got rid of any sort of rubbish that you've got, it's easier to move forward. Then you should have some cash.
You do. I mean, at one stage you were focusing yourself on a particular niche. Are you still doing that?
I've probably got at the moment half my clients are in automotive and half are in construction.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, my LinkedIn at the moment is sort of focused towards architects.
Yeah,
it's quite it's a business I understand. I've worked with architects for 15 years or so.
Yeah,
it's relatively straightforward. Obviously, there's no stock. It's just a knowledge and people business.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, I don't turn away other clients. It's just.
What would you say that from your knowledge of that sector of the market, would you say their biggest problem is? What would their biggest problem be?
Finding a niche is probably a bit of an issue. A lot of the work is volume house building work, which is not good margin. Once you get above a certain size, you're going to take on overheads. You're going to have an office, but you're competing probably with people who are working in the back bedrooms doing the same sort of work, even producing for the volume house builders. So yeah, I mean, I found a few interesting niches that people have been involved in. So one business in Italy that works solely on spas. So that sounded quite interesting, and they seem to be doing very well out of that. They sort of world renowned. And another one in England that focuses on crematoria, which I love the idea of that, because no one's going to do that for fun, are they?
Well, I don't know. Depends what kind of personality you are. Kevin Appleby, we're laughing all the way to the bank, wouldn't he? But
not many.
It just proves that if you can niche down and make yourself a unique fit in the market, you can make big money.
Yeah. Even from a dying market. But having said that, I know on your website. Yeah, I know. You can cut that bit out. On your website, the Pareto FD, and anybody who's looking for this, it's Pareto, and then there's a dash FD.com. If you go there, you'll find out more about Andy. But basically, on there you've got 4 videos which I haven't yet had time to sort of consume. But one talks about
showing his regular level of research before the podcast.
Well, I mean, at least I can see them, Kevin. But specialization, pricing, time, and marketing systems. Just talking about specialization. What would you be talking to potential clients about specialization about? What is that about for them?
It's finding some sort of niche. It's probably a mixture of the actual service you do and the type of client. So, yes, let's take an architectural practice because that's what we talked about before.
Yeah.
Quite often, if you look at the projects they do, they'll go from Johnny's house extension down the road to a few hundred houses. So they call them boxes in fields. A new build for some large house builder. They can't be profitable doing all of that stuff. They should be perhaps not looking at any jobs that are below 10 grand or something like that. If they've got offices already and a team of 10, let's say.
Sure.
Geography is probably an issue as well. They're trying to work someone in Scotland and spending a fortune travelling up there, and they don't know the geography. They don't know the local subcontractors.
Yeah.
And then like the actual service. So. The thing with architects is they like to have a mixture of business to keep people interested. They don't like to specialise so much, but perhaps on their website to say that they specialise in schools, for example. It's a big market. It's quite a good market because you generally get paid because obviously schools are generally local authority contracts. But it's just. Everything seems to follow the niche. So if you know exactly what you're doing, you've got a narrow sort of band of client types and you've got a narrow band of services, you can then market easily to that band. Yeah. Your people can be more specialist because they only work in that area, and you're competing against someone who's a generalist down the road. They don't. You can charge higher prices because you can do the job better, and you can put in place. You can put some systems. It's worth investing in a system that was going to build you the best crematorium, if that's what you do. Yeah. Whereas the generalist down the road can't afford to invest in the same system for everything they do.
Now, I'm going to put Kevin on the spot for the second one that we're going to talk about here. Given that you've probably watched the video, Kevin, but basically the one about time, what would you expect Andy to have mentioned in that video when it comes to time, given that he's advising potential clients?
Time's a really, really interesting one. So many different facets of it. But if I was looking at profitability in most service-based organizations, I'd be starting off by getting people to tell me what they spend their time doing. Okay. And what drives that time. There's a classic thing that 80% of your time will go to 20% of your customers. Now, if those customers are all small ones, not selling a huge amount of money, you're not making any money. Time understanding which products and which customers it goes towards in a service-based business is fundamental to understanding the gross margin.
Okay. Well, off the top, pretty good answer, Kevin. But is that what you said in your video?
I was looking at it from a slightly different point of view, really. So, and I've actually, funny enough, I re-recorded this yesterday. I haven't put it up yet, and I've changed the word from time to delegation.
Okay.
So I'm focusing just on the business owner, and I'm trying to say, funny enough, it was the 80-20. I'm trying to say, what you're probably doing is you're spending 100% of your time in the business. Yeah. Try and carve out some time to think about the future. And people do that with me because I don't really look at the past so much. So it's part of the whole sort of work that I do with people. But even if they don't do it with me, find an old family friend or someone who's been involved in a business before, and just cut like one morning a week. It's not 20%, but even if it's just one morning or a couple of hours on a Friday morning, just get away from the phone, get away from the email, and just start thinking about where's this business going to be in 3 years' time? Where do I want to go? Because if you don't start delegating quite soon, you never will, and you'll never sell your business.
I suppose there is a link between your answer and Kevin's, because basically Kevin's really saying, don't fritter away your time almost with inconsequential clients almost, or people who are begging your time. Spend some quality time forward planning and seeing where you're going to get to. Because what you're really saying, Kevin, is you're wasting your time. And I think what you were saying, Andy, is that basically, well, you can actually do more delegation to open up that time to do more planning and more effective work.
Yeah, I think we're looking at the two extremes of the same scale, aren't we? So the classic business owner is wasting their time on clients that aren't going to get them where they want to get to.
Yeah.
But at the other end, they're not carving out that 10-20% to actually think about not the best of today, but where they want to be in 3, 5, 10 years time.
So from those videos, and it gives our listeners a really interesting look at you and what you can actually do for them, and maybe it poses questions in their own minds, and that's really what this podcast is about, isn't it, in a sense? Because effectively what we're trying to do is get people to be thinking about their own organizations and businesses, and in the sort of specialization niches, where we should be positioned, etc. How I can actually choose a niche that's going to maximize profits, time, or delegation. How can I actually spend more time in the serious work that needs to be done by me, not the less serious work? And there are two others that you've got in those areas. One which is pricing, and the other one marketing systems. Let's take pricing first, because I would argue that's just part of marketing anyway. But well, it is part of marketing. So pricing. Tell us more about pricing.
Yeah, it's just, again, it's one of the first things I would look at in any business I went into, because probably there's not much thought gone into it strategically. The prices that are charged by most businesses are very similar to similar businesses, and that's potentially where they came from. Yeah. So a lot of architects charge hourly rates, which are, if you go onto the RIBA's website, you can probably figure out what the hourly rates are, the averages. So yeah, it's a question of often just saying, what are you good at? Where are you really giving good value to your clients? Which bits are they really getting good value for? And couldn't you charge more? Mm. And there's often a bit of, oh no, I couldn't do that. But actually, if you try bit by bit, you often can. You can charge more for things that you are an expert at, especially if you're going to deliver it more efficiently than anybody else.
Is that your experience as well, Kevin?
Yeah, and I think very little thought often does go into pricing. And you're right in some ways to say pricing and marketing are very interlinked. Pricing and finance are hugely interlinked. No? Well, yeah. I think to know how to price things, you've got to know the costs, you've got to know the margins and so on. But I think a mistake I see a lot of small businesses making around price is, we need some more sales. We'll have a sale. We'll promote something with a discount. Right? Well, the alternative is, if you know your margins, how can I not discount on price, but offer more value? And that, for instance, is something we do in Grow CFO. We've got some products that pretty much got a fixed cost of running. The basic Grow CFO membership is pretty much a fixed cost. So a marginal sale, a new membership fee comes in, does it incur any extra cost for us? No, not really. But if we sell a mentoring package, yes, it does incur a lot of variable cost, because most of it is paying for the mentor's time. But how do we differentiate ourselves to show more value? We'll give you a free premium membership of Grow CFO if you buy a 6-month mentoring package. Hugely increases the value, does not decrease the price, actually allows us to position ourselves in a premium position alongside other mentoring businesses that don't have the learning and development base that we've got.
No, it's good.
The price, you've really got to know where the profit is on various things.
You mentioned this earlier, Andy. All we're doing is feeding from your expertise in a sense, but basically, back in the 1980s, I worked for Lego, the toy company, and effectively one of the things that we did there is we had a range of really small toys. Back then, I don't know, I can't remember exactly what it was, but say call £1 each. And then the top toy, the sort of big, spaceship or whatever it was at the time, big castle, it would have been, and in my time, it crept over £100, which I thought was just staggering. This is in the 1980s. And I think now I was wandering around somewhere, I can't remember. I was looking at the Lego bits on it. I think their top end prices are now heading towards 500 quid. So it's that kind of level of investment, which probably is all relative. But the point is, they have products in different price markets, and they also know that some of their clients are actually adults. It's not so much the kids, even they might have kids, but they're basically buying it effectively for themselves, because it's quite a challenge building one of these things. So the end of the day, they have got products and price offers right across a range. They don't tend to discount. I certainly didn't in my day. And to your point, Kevin, it's just the packaging of how that service, and it's a different service, I grant you, Lego bricks compared to architectural services. But at the end of the day, if those architects do not have a really high-end service, then there's a part of the market, possibly their niche market, they're missing out on.
Yeah. I mean, designing multi-million-pound houses for celebrities, perhaps, but yeah. I'm sure there are specialists in that market. I guess your issue there is how many of them there are to do, and the gaps in between. So you probably need other work to fill that out as well. So again, you've got different price points, different services, but probably for different customers.
There might well be, but at the end of the day, if you're in, shall we say, high end or affluent households, affluent house building, then there's a range of, in my business, I provide affluent data, but basically there's a range of affluence. And there's, your £30 million house and maybe something like 500,000 or so at one end. So you've got a heck of a range there. But if you went all the way down to, shall we say, entry level, then you're probably halving that initial price there. So it does seem to me that, niching and pricing to a degree go together.
Yeah, exactly. And you're not going to be able to get a premium price generally unless you are a specialist. I mean, that's just one follows the other, doesn't it? If I think of all of those startups I've been involved in, I think there's 11 of them. They were all very specialist, and they all, the bigger ones, made profit margins much bigger than the average in the market. Yeah. Even the MOD contract that we had, we didn't price it just to get it. The board said, you've got to make a decent profit on this because there's risk, and we were taking it off, an incumbent. Yeah. But at the end of the day, the MOD got a cheaper deal overall, because the way that we'd been able to service it, which the incumbent couldn't. So that's the sort of thing you got to look for, really, isn't it? I think. It
is almost the specialism and the margin that you're getting are linked. It would be hopeless if you were a specialist but had low margins. That wouldn't really be a clever move, would it?
I can't see why you'd want to do that. I mean,
no.
You're
No. I'm the cheapest
serving charity, maybe, but
cheapest celebrity house builder going. I don't want to do that.
I can see that why you might want to have some low prices and still be a specialist, but I can't see why you'd want low margins. And I'm thinking about the Lego example. Why do Lego have those little products? Well, that's quite simple. It fits any sort of hobby market. People will make big purchases infrequently, but people will want to spend effectively their pocket money. Okay, so if you've got a whole load of stuff that is pocket money priced, the nice thing about it is that people will buy it, and it falls into that kind of no-brainer decision. Oh, I need one of those to do this little thing this weekend. Bang! It's only 10 quid. I'll buy it. Yeah. Right. Now, you might still be making a 50% margin on that 10 quid product. But at the same time, there's this big thing that I want. It's 500 quid. Yes, of course you want it, because, if you are in the right niche and you've done your marketing right, you'll have some super fans. Super fans will buy whatever it is you make.
Yeah, I think it's like when you're doing a webinar and so forth, and you're getting your audience collectively to sort of keep saying yes, and then you're mentally hurtling towards the conclusion that the webinar provider wants you to have. And it's the same, I guess, with those little Lego boxes. And for all the reasons you've just said, Kevin, and I completely agree with what you're saying. But there's almost like a mental series of yeses to the brand, to the actual, it's a very wholesome product, and also, and I'm building reasons why they're going to buy the bigger stuff come Christmas or Easter or whenever they buy those things for their birthdays or whatever. So for me, I think whatever market you're in, I think there is that kind of consideration you'd want to take on board within that pricing. But that's the fourth one, marketing systems. Is that just simply about organization?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not pretending to be an expert in marketing, but I can probably look at a business and see whether it's doing well or not. It's just return on investment, isn't it? It's what are you trying to do, and is it a system, and does it work, or is it random and you don't know whether it works because no one's actually checking, and you're just paying money to a consultant, or we've got an in-house marketer or whatever. I've got a thing called a scorecard, which I use as a marketing tool, and they're quite popular at the moment, I know. And you can build your own, or you can get someone else to do it, but it follows the book, and it's actually in the book, and you can just answer 32 questions, I think it is, and it scores you against those 4 parts of the book.
Okay. And
then it gets you an email address, and if you can follow up, or you can just check how it's working.
Yeah.
It's things like that, really. So that's the only bit of marketing I've got, which is anyway systemized. Everything else is just a bit random, really. I mean, lots of people know what I do, and they often, not often, but they frequently introduce me to people who might be interested, and we have conversations, and sometimes they turn into clients. And most businesses couldn't cope with that because there's not enough volume. I mean, I'm lucky if I get a client, they tend to stay for years. But what I'd be looking for in a client's business is really, do they know that if they push that ad, next week and spend $2,000 on it, it's going to give them 50 inquiries that's going to turn into two clients,
Well, I can tell you from my industry, the answer is no. How can you know that? You part of it is for me, when it comes to things like direct mail marketing, you basically, up to a point, it's about stopping doing the things that you are likely to fail from. Bad copy, no headline, no offer, no sequence within the letter itself, all the things that you can screw up. So if you can take out all of those and have a great offer, well, you're in danger of having some success. How much success? Who knows? And that's why testing comes in, and having a clear testing path. But there's lots of ways in which you can treat media to try and get a better result from it. And I suppose in that way, that's my sort of kind of finance head working within my own business. Kevin, you were just about to say something?
Yeah, and think about the sort of businesses that Andy's often dealing with. And you've grown to a certain size, and it's more than likely you've got the business owner taking a very hands-on role in everything.
Yeah.
Finance appointment comes along, it's somebody fairly senior. Now, question you must ask at this point is, has that business owner done a similar sort of thing and invested in somebody who really knows about marketing? I suggest, I'm interested to know your experience of the businesses that you've joined. Has the business owner thought about getting somebody of equivalent caliber to yourself, but in the marketing field?
Yeah, rarely. It's often something that's sort of done between the management team and an external consultant.
It's like owners of football clubs, isn't it? I mean, it's like, why not do a football club? They don't. They might manage their own business, but from a marketing point of view, it's almost what they're, maybe they're considering. Well, I've built a business of £1 million. Why do I need any marketing expertise? Because your profit's 50,000 quid on that. Well, maybe we could do a bit better,
Yeah, I think that what's interesting sometimes is to ask how much business they turn down. Not because it's completely wrong or it doesn't work, but how much they turn down because it was just about right, but they haven't got the capacity. You know, they only want to do this much work because they know that's what they can do well. And obviously, if you are turning down work, then the best way to figure out which ones you do is to put the price up, which makes it profitable, which gives you more time to do the better work, invest in systems. It's just it's a sausage machine, really, isn't it? It's a process. But.
And you're still available for active work then, and it's not like you're putting your feet up in Chelmsford.
Unfortunately, not. No, I've still got 2 very expensive children.
Yeah, they'll be grown up now, though, I guess.
Yeah. Well, in fact, my son has finished university now. My daughter hasn't. But yeah, I still do a full week, really. I mean, you called me a part-time finance director. I think sometimes people get the wrong impression. The golf course doesn't see me very often. It's just part-time for each individual client. So.
Well, even if I'm on one, it doesn't really see much of me. I mean, it's on the edges somewhere. But
my experience of doing part-time roles, multiple part-time roles, is that frequently the deadlines fall in the same places, and you can end up having to cram 7 days work into 5. Part-time does not mean time doing nothing.
No, unfortunately not. No, I think you have to sort of pull back from as much of the regular month-end stuff as you can, because otherwise that is a problem. Luckily some of them are very quick to report and some of them aren't, but I'm only really reviewing that sort of work. So
I love the phrase that you've got on the top of your LinkedIn profile. So if you want to find Andy Cristin, and it's Cristin, which I don't know, am I right in thinking that might be a French name? I don't know.
Well, it's Jersey. It's probably is French origins, but my dad's family come from Jersey, so.
Right. Okay. But your strapline there is more profit, more cash, more time. That's the promise that you're making people, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And it's let's face it, there can't be many better promises than that, Kevin. Can you eclipse that promise, Kevin?
I think it's hard, because you're encapsulating everything you want as a business owner there
in 6 words, and he's repeating 3 of them. I mean, well, he's repeating one of them 3 times, sort of thing. So basically, but no, I get that, and I like it. It's really quite straightforward. And the most important thing, as you said earlier, is that profits first. Profits, it's that having that profit mindset, and I think that's where you can really make a difference for people. But the only kind of people that you want are between 1 million and 10 million. Is that more or less people who've got businesses that are somewhere between those ranges?
Yeah. Well, I think the two extremes are, the business has got to be complex enough to warrant having someone like me. So if you are just selling a widget for 50p and you're selling enough of them, there's not much I can do, because there is no gross margin differences to look at. And if you got it to £1 million, you probably know what you're doing. Yeah. But if you've got a few different services, a few different markets, different price levels, perhaps a few different sites, even then it's getting complex. And at the other end, the limit is, have I got enough time? Is it a role that can be done 2, 3, max 4 days a month? Yeah. Because otherwise, it starts to become part-time stroke full-time.
It does.
I mean, I have had clients up to 30, 50 million. And they've got a controller, a financial controller, and probably maybe even one other qualified or 2 other qualifieds, and a team. Yeah. So you're just supervising and directing. Yeah. But yeah, the roles that I really like are the ones where it's somebody who's built a business from nothing. They've got to the point, as you said, where they've got a bookkeeper and they're spending far too much time themselves with spreadsheets that probably don't add up, averaging averages and stuff that I see that go wrong. And they just really should just hand it over to someone who can do it more efficiently, and spend their time on what they're good at, which is probably either the business development
Yep.
or some sort of technical side, managing and improving the technical side of the business,
or even managing the team at the end of the day. So,
yeah.
but yeah, I mean, so if they're let's face it, to do the work that you do, it's going to swamp people because it's quite complicated, and and it's very, there's a lot to it, and so and that's one of the things as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, you just have to have a range of skills until you get to a certain size, and then you can bring those skills in. And I guess some of your clients, and I suppose we'll call it a day at this point, but some of your clients will have amalgamations of businesses, they've merged with other people. Have you found that that's something that you've been drawn into as well?
That I don't know. I think that tends to happen a bit later on, really, than when I get involved, perhaps.
Okay.
It's interesting what you say there. And I'll give you an example that's completely opposite. So I got some great experience working with a serial entrepreneur. We co-founded a couple of businesses about 10 years ago, sold them 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And from day one, he did not want to get involved in the day-to-day technical work. Because there wasn't much money, I mean, we bootstrapped it, but everybody was part-time. So everyone was like me. The ops director was part-time. The sales guy was part-time. We didn't get the first contract for a couple of years. But when we did, we've actually made a couple of people full-time when we brought a team on board. Yeah. But he knew what he needed to do to build a business that was saleable, and it wasn't get lost in it himself.
Yeah.
He had this vision. He knew exactly what multiple he wanted right at the beginning, and we got more than that at the end. And he knew what he used to say was he would employ people who were better than him in each of the roles. Mm-hmm. Or he didn't in finance, but he definitely did in ops and sales. And
that sounds like a really smart guy. We should have him on the podcast.
Yeah,
sounds like it
Definitely. Sounds like a good guest, Graham.
Yeah. I'm surprised you didn't spot him earlier, Kevin. But now we have.
The real brains behind the operation.
Yeah. But it's been, honestly, Andy, for a finance director, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the Next 100 Days podcast.
Well, Graham, we've had quite a conversation with Andy. Who would have thought that you'd have conversations about niching and marketing and pricing tactics in a finance discussion rather than a marketing discussion?
I think you made the point earlier that these things are kind of awful. Like, it's the same word, but it's viewed in different, well, possibly similar ways in different specialisms. I agree with you. It's so refreshing to talk to a senior level finance director and somebody who's got that understanding, like you. We talk all the time, but to bring somebody else in who also has that kind of, who lives it every day. Really, really fascinating. And don't get me wrong, I get as much value out of talking to finance directors as I do to talking to anybody else, especially somebody like Andy Cristin, because I think one of the beauties of what he's doing is he's making a real difference. And like I said earlier, it's a bit like those little hinges that swing big doors. And if he can go in there and actually swing a big door in a little bit further out, then it means that the profitability of those businesses could be significantly increased. So, he's important. And, if you're in that category and you feel that you might be an architect, or you might be somebody in the sort of specialist areas he's working in, get in touch with him, have a conversation, and let's see where it goes.
And I think one of my biggest areas of learning lately, talking to Andy and people like Andy, is the number of businesses that get to 7 figures and think they can't afford a finance person when they actually need a finance person is considerable. Yeah. And the message to any business owners of that size business, have you thought about having a fractional CFO, finance director? They might only give you 3 or 4 days a month. The amount of money that you spend on those 3 or 4 days a month can pay back hugely, because that Pareto that we talked about, the 80-20, certainly comes into play.
Yeah, I agree. I can understand the challenges of people spelling Pareto, but let alone understand what it really means. But once basically Andy gets have that conversation. I'm sure he's going to be able to give of his best. And, you know, Essex lad, don't quite sound like he's from Essex, but nonetheless, he's still an Essex lad. He can make more profit for you. He's been a great guest today on The Next 100 Days. Well, I've been Graham Arrowsmith.
I've been Kevin Appleby. Goodbye.
Goodbye.